Welcome to Wrestling with Fitness, a monthly accountability podcast collaboration of the For Frequency's Sake Podcast Network and Shotgun Wrestling Radio. Here are your hosts, Shotgun Wrestling Radio's Zach Takis and the Wizard CZ from the card, Subject to Change.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another fine episode of Wrestling with Fitness. I am your host, the Wizard CZ. You can just call me CZ if you want. As you can see, if you're watching us live, Zach Takis is not with us this evening. He had a prior engagement that he needed to be at, but we're going to have some fun tonight. Before I introduce my guest, just want to thank our hosts of the For Frequency's Sake Podcast Network, sponsored by Ryan Allison Tattoo and Durham Remodeling. Appreciate them hosting our show here. But I'm excited. I've been talking to this gentleman for a little bit here. He's on a fitness journey of his own, a big wrestling fan. So we're going to talk all things wrestling and fitness, like the show is. Dr. Jeremy Housewright. Jeremy, how you doing today?
Fantastic. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'm just going to dive right in. You know, you post about January 1st, 2024.
Yeah.
Towards the beginning of our journey, Zach and I, we posted our videos as to why. So that's going to be my first question is, what was it that triggered the fitness journey for you?
Man, you know, that's a question that I think about quite often because quite honestly, it was something that needed to be done years ago. And I was never ready to do it. I had been told for years by my wife, by people that cared about me, that I needed to do something about it, and I never did. I just, I don't know if it was I didn't think I needed to do anything. People always told me that I carried my weight well. They were always shocked to hear how heavy I was because I didn't look as heavy as I was because I didn't have as big of a belly as you would think that I would have for as much as I weighed. It was spread out more. You know, so I guess part of it was denial. Part of it was I just was addicted to food and, you know, that lifestyle of sitting around and doing nothing and just eating. And that had to come to an end. And I finally woke up and realized it.
And that sounds a lot like where I've been. And I've gone back and forth over the last decade and a half of losing weight, bringing it back on, losing it, bringing it back on. But I can never seem to stick with it. And I'm at that point now where I need to get it done. You know, I'm, like you said, addicted to food, addicted to the lifestyle of sitting around, watching TV, playing video games. I have a sedentary job where I'm sitting right now. This is where I work.
Sure.
You know, and I'm here 8-9 hours a day. It's tough. It's tough to get into that mindset. And, you know, for me personally, I've been kind of at a plateau with things. I feel like I'm not losing any weight, but I'm not gaining it either. And I'm just kind of struggling in that limbo. And I have been for about a month or so.
Right.
If it's not too personal, where were you at when you started your journey? Weight-wise?
Man, I'll tell you a story that I haven't told. I don't know if I've told my wife this. I think I may have told her. Jesus, something's dropping upstairs. I don't know what the heck. So I had the gastric sleeve. Was it the sleeve? The sleeve done several years ago.
Okay.
And it didn't really work out too well. Well, it wasn't the sleeve. It was the port, I guess it was. I don't know what the heck it was exactly. As you can tell, I wasn't very dedicated to it, you know.
Right.
And So I had moved up to Kansas City in 2022 for a job, and I was up there by myself. She had stayed back here in St. Louis, and I was getting out of control, and I knew it. I mean, I was just basically going to work, and then I was going back to my apartment and just sitting on the couch watching TV, eating and drinking pop nonstop. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to go get this thing filled. Maybe that'll help. And I remember, I'll never forget the day I went there and I stepped on the scale and it read 436 pounds. And it was like something hit me. I was shocked. Honestly, I thought I was probably right around 300. I had no idea. I went out in my car that day and I cried. And this is the God's honest truth, and I'm ashamed for doing it. I went to Culver's and I got a burger and an ice cream, and I went back to my apartment and I ate it. And I didn't do anything else about it. I didn't do anything about this until I came home, and it was still 6 months later till I started the journey because I wasn't ready. You know, I looked at that number and it broke my heart. And honestly, I was at the point where I figured, you know what, I got a couple of years to live and I'm probably going to be dead. That's what I was thinking. And I was kind of making my peace with that I didn't have any other choice. I didn't think I was ever going to be able to, you know, defeat this. And it took literally coming home, and a lot of self-realization, a lot of looking in the mirror, and a lot of looking deep into myself and realizing why I did what I was doing and the reason behind why I was addicted to food. Because it was not just something that affected me, it was a cycle that was in my family for years and still is. And it was a lot of emotional issues, a
Yes.
lot of things that were deeper than just sitting around, you know, a lot of emotional stuff. So I had to really focus on those things.
And that I'm right there with you. You know, it's kind of passed down
Mhm.
by upbringing a lot. I mean, genetically, yes, there are some factors, but a lot of how we are brought up in America, you know, most people are brought up, oh well, uh, don't feel like cooking. There's a restaurant right over there. I'm going to go get a burger.
Yeah.
Or for me and for a lot of people I know, it's food is a way to what's the word I want to right now it feels like manipulate. I want to say manipulate emotions. That's true, but that's not the word that I'm looking for, if that makes sense.
You know, what I tell people is this, you know, growing up, um, my grandfather would take me to Cardinal games and or wrestling matches. And afterward, late at night, we would be going home and we would stop and we would get a burger at Hardee's. And that became a trend. And it was always like, you know what? You had a great day at school. You got a good grade on this paper. Let's go celebrate by eating.
Yes.
You had a rough day at school. You didn't do well on this assignment. Let's make you feel better by taking you out to eat. Everything we did as a family revolved around food. And it was an endless cycle. And it really took me looking at that and realizing that to realize that I needed to end that. You know, not everything I needed to do needed to revolve around food, and it doesn't anymore. Rarely anything I do anymore revolves around going out to eat. I rarely go out to eat. It's just something that I choose not to do. And there's been times where I'll go out with people and I just won't eat just because I don't really feel like it, or I don't feel like it's a healthy choice for me. And I make sure to tell them, don't take it personally. Eat whatever you want. You're not going to bother me. You can eat whatever you want in front of me.
Right.
It's not going to affect me. Because some people get offended by that.
Absolutely.
And I'm like, I'm not trying to offend anybody. It's just my personal choice. So yeah, it's just, it's a psychological thing that I think that was probably one of the most difficult things to deal with, honestly.
So I'm pretty much there right now, and food is the hardest obstacle for me to overcome.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, sure, there are days where I don't want to work out. I don't want to, but I can get up and I can walk if I want to. I can do my DDPY. I can lift the weights. I can go to the Y and get in the pool. That's what I love to do the most. I have no problem with the exercise. It's the food, and I am an emotional eater. Mm-hmm. I'm a binge eater, and I'm seeing someone now to help get my head out of that cycle, but it's the hardest thing to overcome.
Absolutely. I struggle with it. There's times when I've noticed that certain things will trigger me to, but I've gotten to the point where I can catch myself. I'm fortunate enough now to where I will catch the majority of the time I can catch myself before I will do that. But it is very difficult, and it's funny because I'll get mad at myself if I catch myself starting to even think about it. It's like, man, I know I'm mad about this, or I know I'm stressed out, but why would I even think about wanting to go eat or or wanting to eat this stuff? Or
right.
My vice was soda. That was my big thing. I can remember drinking a 2-liter or more a day of Coke or Pepsi, like it was nothing. And I have not had a soda in nearly 2 years now, and it's strictly water. I do some lemonade, sugar-free lemonade mix with water here at home. Okay. But I was carrying milk jugs of water every day to work and just drinking straight out of the milk jug. That's what I was doing. And being a teacher, the kids kind of got a kick out of it because a lot of the football players do that too. So, we would actually do it at lunch together. We would call ourselves the Jugheads, hang out together. But that was the hardest part for me, was giving up the soda. And there are times now, 2 years later, where I still get that itch where I'll be like, man, I could really go for a Coke. I miss it. I don't know what it is about it, but man, it's almost like I'd equate it to like a cigarette almost, I guess.
For sure. If you don't mind me asking, what was the journey like to break your mindset of the cycle with the soda and the food?
Man, I picked the absolute worst time to start because I officially started like January 1st, but I basically did a cleanse over Christmas. So I didn't really eat at Christmas at all, like in 23. And when I started to cleanse, it really screwed up my stomach to the point where I couldn't leave the house hardly because my stomach was so screwed up because it was just getting rid of all the toxins. And I'm like, man, I can't believe this. Here it is Christmas. I can't even enjoy it because, I'm trying to clean my system out so I can start this diet. And so when I was able to get my system cleaned out and to at least where I was good to go, I literally went straight water for, I want to say 4 days. I did nothing but water. Then it was water and some fruit, maybe like apples, bananas, oranges. And I stuck with the fruit for quite a while. Maybe, fruit and vegetables, squash, things like that. I want to say I did nothing but fruit and vegetables for at least a month, which again wreaked havoc on my stomach, man. It was brutal, but I felt wonderful. I did, and being in the wintertime, I I still have not joined the gym. I do all this outdoors, or I have an elliptical now in my basement. But I have not joined. I refuse to join a gym, and it's nothing personal. It's just I don't want to.
Right.
I like getting outside. I like hitting the streets, um, and it's crazy because people actually have noticed, and it's kind of funny because my wife will walk with me occasionally on the weekends. At first, I did it all on my own. I didn't want her with me, and I still like to do it on my own. It's my time. I look at it as my time to kind of decompress, relieve stress. Now, I put my my AirPods in, play some music, and I just go. And I'll be gone for an hour at least, and I come back and I'm good. But on the weekends, I'll ask her to go with me occasionally. And we were out walking. I think it was Saturday, and we have some strange characters in our town here, and grown men who like to ride like children's bicycles around town. We have a little bit of a meth problem around town here, and a couple gentlemen were riding their bikes around, and they looked a little shady. So I kind of moved her away, and I was walking past him, and the guy starts hollering at me, and I'm like, "Oh man, what does he want?" And he goes, "Hey man," he goes, "you've lost a ton of weight since you started walking, since I saw you, start this." And I was kind of flattered by it. I'm like, "Well, I don't know who this dude is." And my wife's like, "That's kind of creepy that he's watching you." And it is kind of creepy that he's watching me, but people notice. I mean, I'll get comments all the time. You think you're that guy that walks at 5 a.m. on the streets, or I'll see you in the middle of the night walking, and I'm like, yeah, I like to get up early in the morning, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning, and get it done, because I'm a morning person. So most of the time, 8, 9 in the morning, my day's halfway done already because I'm up early. So, and I don't need a lot. That's the one thing I've realized with this. I don't need a lot of sleep. I'll get 5 or 6 hours of sleep on average, and I'm good. I've noticed that about myself now that I'm eating a lot better and taking better care of myself. I don't need near as much sleep. I don't feel the need to sleep near as much. And that's kind of strange, because usually it's the opposite. My doctor's even said, he's like, because I do see a doctor on a regular basis every 3 months. And that was a big catalyst in getting me going on this, because I had been seeing a doctor occasionally and I didn't like him. Didn't like him at all. And I wouldn't go. And my wife convinced me to go to a new one. And so begrudgingly, that's how I got started on this, because I walked in, and as soon as he walked in, I knew that I had a fighting chance, just because he didn't do any blaming. He didn't, he didn't talk to me vindictively. He was understanding. He was straight and to the point. He's like, here's how I want you to attack this. This is our strategy to start. If this don't work, we're going to try this. There's steps that we can take. There's different things we can try. We're going to, if you have a certain thing you want to try, we'll try it your way. And if it doesn't work, then we do my way. And so he gave me options. And I respected that. He's been a lifesaver. He really has. And he brags about me to all his patients. He's like, yeah, this guy follows what I tell him to do. He's drinking the water. He's out walking and doing the exercises every day and blah, blah, blah. He follows me on social media, and it turned into a big kind of motivational thing for me to motivate others. Because I started it as a way, posting on Facebook and such. I needed a way to hold myself accountable. And because that was a big thing for me. If I didn't have, I didn't want someone who was going to be like, oh, did you exercise today?
Right.
Are you eating clean? Because that would annoy the hell out of me. I don't like people getting in my business. But at the same time, I'm like, I definitely need to make sure I got somebody keeping tabs on me. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to put it out there. The hell with it. I'm just going to put it out there, and it is what it is. And at first, I think people were like, what in the heck is he doing? Because I would put hashtag accountability, and then being a wrestling fan, being a huge fan of The Rock's, it was always boots to asses. And I've always put that every time I post. And that's a motto that I've adopted, and I carry it with me in my, not just in my, health, but in my, in business too, in my work life, in my professional life. I it's boots to asses. I believe in that, and that's the way I live. So, but it's turned into a big motivation thing for other people. Like I've had people tell me, man, you've motivated me to get out there and make a change, to try to better my health. And hey, I'm all for it. And the way I look at it is, now I want this to be something that I do that helps young people, because being an educator, I know all too well how much being overweight as a kid and as a teenager sucked. And I see kids today that go through it. And, we live in a culture now where it's like, we should tell everyone it's okay to be the way that they are. Yeah. And I'm not saying we shouldn't, but at the same time, when you have a kid that's 100 pounds overweight and who struggles to get up a flight of stairs like I was when I was a teenager, you can't tell him, oh, it's okay, you're good with the way you are. Yeah. No, man, we can't do that as a society. There's positive ways to motivate kids, and I want to be that positive way. I want them to know that, hey, I know what it's like to be in your shoes. I've been there. I've dealt with the, not being able to get a date for the school dances, being stuck in the friend zone, all that crap. And I think eventually this is going to turn into a book. That's kind of the route I'm heading with this. I firmly believe that. When, I don't know. I don't know when I'm going to be done with this. I don't know if I'll ever be done. But I think that's the route I'm eventually heading with it, because I really think that this is something that will help young people. It needs to be out there to help young people, because I think it's something that we as a society have really let kind of go by the wayside here lately, over the last few years.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I love that you talk about accountability, because that is the main reason Zach and I started doing the podcast. That's the reason that I'm posting an article every Sunday, to keep myself accountable. And having someone, whether it's, people that follow you or whether it's someone you're close with, to keep you accountable and keep you on track, that's necessary. You have to have that, because, for someone like me, if I don't have someone keeping me accountable, I'm going to just fall back into old habits.
Yeah, me too.
Quickly.
Yeah. That's with everybody. And it doesn't have to be just in health. It can be with anything in life. You have to have somebody there to keep you grounded and to keep you on track. And with whatever we do, that's just how life is. Being a former coach, it's the same way with coaching kids. I can remember I'd make my basketball players shoot free throws at the end of practice, and I made sure that we ran, 10 suicides before we shot free throws every night. And they would ask me why. I'd say, because when it's at the end of the game and you're shooting a free throw, I want you to feel tired like you're going to feel at the end of the game. Otherwise, what's the use in shooting a free throw when you're not tired right now? You know? So it's important to have that. Yeah, absolutely.
And I just want to take a moment to pause. Again, this is Wrestling with Fitness on the For Frequency's Sake podcast network. Thank you for Frequency's Sake for letting us host. I am here with Dr. Jeremy Housewright. We're talking fitness. We're talking all things fitness so far, but let's kind of shift gears a little bit. We get to about halfway through an episode, and Zach and I like to talk about wrestling because that's the other half. That's what brought him and I together. Mm-hmm. You have written 2 wrestling books. I've read them both, and I highly recommend them if you have time. If you're a reader, they give a unique perspective, not just from your point of view, but from people you've met along the way. Mm-hmm. We'll talk about the books in a minute. I'm going to steal a question from my other co-host on Card Subject to Change, and I'm going to ask, why pro wrestling? What got you hooked on that?
Because I think when I first told people I was writing a book on pro wrestling, they were a little surprised, because most people who know me know I'm a huge Kansas City Chiefs football fan. I'm a huge Notre Dame football fan. I've only, over the last few years, let my wrestling fandom kind of out of the bag, I guess. I've always been a wrestling fan, but it's not always been acceptable to kind of always be out in the open about it.
No, it's not the cool thing at all.
Yeah, it's not the cool thing to, have a PhD and be a pro wrestling fan all the time. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, people would have been like, what? So I think I just decided, you know what? I love it. It's something that would keep my interest, because that was the problem. I was starting things and I was stopping them because nothing would keep my interest. And I knew that if it wouldn't keep my interest, I wouldn't be able to keep the reader's interest.
Right.
But I also knew that you can go online and read watch or read on any superstar out there pretty much right now. So I didn't just want to do a regular book on say, since I'm from St. Louis, Randy Orton or somebody like that. So I really had to think about what angle I was going to take with the book. And at first I was like, well, I could do something with like independent wrestling, because the indie scene is huge here in St. Louis, with, of course, wrestling at the Chase and that sort of thing. But again, I always tell people I was not a huge indie wrestling fan at first. I'm more of one now, but at first I was not at all. So I happened to start covering WWE shows here in St. Louis for my website. And it kind of snowballed into me then shooting some photography at the shows. And I would get credentialed for some bigger shows. And then I would get credentialed to be able to travel to a few shows, like in Vegas, Chicago, Memphis, Nashville, places like that. And along the way, I would have some crazy things happen. Booking a meth hotel, you know, which was a story in the first book.
I remember that.
You know, but I'd meet some really, really cool people along the way who I've become lifelong friends with. People that I talk to every other day about wrestling. You know, the one guy's from Canada, and he literally came and stayed with me about a week or two after I met him at WrestleMania. I think we met him in Orlando at WrestleMania 33. You know, and I've been friends with him ever since. So I thought, you know what? If I have these type of stories just in my travels, because I don't consider myself a very interesting person, there's got to be people out there with some really cool stories to tell. And I know that I'm a great interviewer. I know how to ask good questions. So I'm like, okay, this could go somewhere. So I kind of just thought, okay, let's give it a shot and see where this goes. And I told my story in the first book, and then I found 6 other individuals for the first book that had really cool stories, and put them in that book. And that's how the first one came to be.
And that, you know, you trigger a lot of memories for me over the last couple of years, because you're giving a fan perspective. The reason I got into podcasting, my friend Nick and I we've known each other about 20 years. We've always been into wrestling. So we wanted to do something. We started as a review show, but as soon as we started interviewing people on the independent scene, we knew that's what we needed to do more often than not, because we love the stories that people tell. And everybody has a different story and a different perspective. And seeing you bring fans' perspectives together in the 2 books that you've written, I like I said, I love every moment of it, you know, and with good reason, you know, for the love of the show and for the love of the show too. Fantastic reads.
Thank you.
Oh my.
No, you're
My
good.
brain froze. I love it. This happens every once in a while, or I'll just start babbling nonsense. Both Nick and Zach can attest to that.
It happens. Yeah. No, I get it, man.
Is there interest in a 3rd book in the series? I'm just curious.
You know, I think in wrestling, look, they always say never say never. So I'm not going to say no. However, I've already got a 3rd book coming out in a couple weeks. It's a children's book, not wrestling related. It is sports related, but it's not wrestling related. I don't know. I was approached kind of off the record about writing about a WWE legend, possibly his autobiography. I don't know if it'll ever happen. I don't know if I'd have interest in doing it, honestly. It'd be a lot of work. And
That's understandable.
I think people don't realize how much work really goes into writing one of these books. It's more than just sitting down at a computer and typing out pages. There's so much more that goes into it. Writing or typing it is the easy part, honestly. It's all the other crap that drives you nuts. From even designing the cover to drive me crazy, man. I think I froze on you for a second.
You did. I was just gonna play it off.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we're still good.
Uh-oh.
Can you hear me all right?
Shoot.
Oh. Jeremy, I can hear you if you can hear me. Um,
You there?
yeah, can you hear me all right?
Oh, crap.
Listen,
Uh-oh.
if you can hear me, try hopping out of the studio and hopping back in. Sometimes that refreshes it. I'm going to message that to you, though. Sorry, live TV. This stuff happens. We are on the For Frequency Sake podcast network. This is Wrestling with Fitness. I am the Wizard CZ. Normally, I'd be joined by my co-host Zach Tickis from Shotgun Wrestling Radio, but he is pre.
There I am. All right.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, man.
All right. That happens. This is a live show, so that
Yeah.
happens sometimes.
It's all good. So anyway, where did you lose me at here?
That's a great question. I'm not 100% sure. I my brain sometimes does that where.
No, you're good.
But there's plenty of other. We were talking about. You were talking about the possibility of a wrestling legend, and how you were talking about how intricate a book is. It's not just typing, but the whole process behind it is.
Yeah. So I'll be honest, the thing that took me the longest with the second book, because the second book I did everything on my own. The first book I had hired an editor, and I thought he did a crap job. And there's things with the first book that drive me crazy that I noticed that most people don't, that were missed. With the second book, so I just decided I'm going to do it all on my own. And there were literally days working on the actual formatting of the book where I would spend 8 hours and maybe get half a page formatted. It was so frustrating. So just things like that, where you invest so much time into these things. And then the advertising that you have to do, coming up with ways to market the book, which has kind of made me more marketable as a journalist, because I've really focused a lot of time on using TikTok and things like that, which has helped me in my career. So, in a way, I'm kind of grateful for that. But I never thought I'd be using TikTok because I think it's ridiculous. I would never use it personally, but for my books, I do use it because it's a huge tool to be able to use. So it's just things like that you have to invest time in and effort that go into, producing a book that a lot of people don't think about.
And I used to write a lot of fiction. I never got to the point of where I finished something and wanted to publish it, but I can only imagine, like you said, sitting down at the computer, typing into a word processor. That's the easy part.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine what the back end looks like from the stories I've heard. Talk about your new book. I know it's not wrestling related. You said it's a children's book.
Yeah.
Comes out next month. Talk about the inspiration behind your new book.
So the new book is going to be called Gertrude Goes to the Ballpark, and it's about my English bulldog, Gertrude. And we have a running joke here at the house about her. She is she's about 9 years old now, and I adopted her from a rescue group about 7, 8 years ago. She's my second English bulldog. And once you get an English bulldog, I don't think you'll ever want a different breed. They're a special type of dog. They're a very difficult type of dog sometimes to raise because they have a lot of health issues. They're not the most healthy dog. But Gertrude, luckily, hasn't had many issues. So we're fortunate in that retrospect. But when we first got her, she would not come out of her crate. She was used strictly for breeding. And with English bulldogs, they're so expensive that a lot of the breeders will just, without getting too graphic, they perform the C-sections themselves and then will just stitch them up themselves. And so this was happening two or three times with Gertrude. So when I got her, she had scars all over her belly, and she was basically, she didn't want anything to do with anybody, and she just stayed in her crate. I had to hand feed her for like a year because she was scared to eat out of a bowl. She still won't eat out of a bowl. I put her food down on a towel, and she eats it. But it took her a year before she came out of her crate. In fact, when COVID hit, my wife was sent home from work. I was still working. And one day I got a phone call from her saying Gertrude came out of the crate. She's hanging out with me. And she got on the bed. She hasn't left the bed since. So we'll go in and we'll watch TV with her at night. And we had a running joke because I'll go in there and I'll watch baseball. And Gertrude will watch baseball with me for about an inning or two, and she falls asleep. Because that's all she really does is sleep. She loves to sleep. Probably 18, 19 hours a day the dog sleeps. So I thought, you know what, why not write a book about Gertrude going to a baseball game? So I came up with the concept of me and her going to a Cardinals game at Busch Stadium on a take your dog to the game day like they have every year. Most stadiums will have a day where you can bring your dog to the ballpark. And I am not an artist, and I've taken a little heat for this part of it. I came up with the art concept. I kind of hand drew the best I could some of the art. And then since I'm a photographer, I took photos of everything that I wanted and kind of loosely sketched it. And I put it into AI. And then I described exactly what I wanted word for word. And I had AI develop the art based off my photography and my loosely based drawings. So some people were like, oh, you're using AI. That's not cool, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, it's a kid's book. Who cares?
Right.
It's about the kids enjoying it. And, and that's my whole thing with it. It's like, I want the kids to enjoy it. And in the end, I think it came out really cute. I've showed it to some of the high school kids that I have, and they think it's awesome. They're like, oh, it's so cute. Kids are going to love it. It turned out really good. I think it's going to do well because people love dogs, and people around here are suckers for Cardinal baseball. They love it. Even if the Cardinals aren't very good, which they weren't this year, people still love their Cardinal baseball. And, I grew up a Cardinal fan. I hate to say it, I'm a Royals fan, but I do still follow the Cardinals. I watched a lot of their games here, but like I said, I grew up a Cardinal fan, so I get the loyalty to the Cardinals and all that. But I think it's something different for young kids to enjoy. And it talks about friendship and loyalty and, supporting each other. So it's got little hidden messages. And I even threw some little Easter eggs in there. Like I have a CM Punk shirt on in one of the scenes. And there's some shout outs to some of the towns in St. Louis, like someone's wearing an Afton t-shirt in the background for Afton High School, little things like that, just that I'm hoping people will notice. And, so yeah, I just wanted to have some fun with it. And hopefully kids enjoy it. So yeah, that releases, I'll be getting some first copies in next week. And then that officially I just booked it today. My first release signing is October 18th in Columbia, Illinois.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I want to backtrack to something you said, and this is going to kind of lead us into wrapping things up a little bit.
Sure.
You talked about how you weren't really a fan of independent wrestling. So kind of got a multi-part question. We'll start with this. What was it that finally got you hooked on independent wrestling as opposed to the big dogs?
So the way I got hooked on indie wrestling was years ago, and they still have these shows here. The Herb Simmons puts on these shows here in St. Louis at South Broadway. I would go to those. My dad took me to a couple years ago, and we'd watch this guy named Moondog Rover. and Gary Night Train Jackson was another one we'd watch. And so I always kind of followed Herb's group somewhat. But again, I was never really super interested. I was a WWF, WWE guy all the way. It wasn't until Cody Rhodes and the Bucks put on All In
Yes.
in Chicago. My buddy and I went, and I remember I was like, well, I guess I'll go. It's going to be something different. I kind of want to see this. I wasn't like crazy about it. He was. He kept telling me all these different guys are going to be there, and I'm like, well, who the hell are these guys? I've never heard of, Zack Sabre Jr. And we're walking. This is a funny story. So we're walking around the hotel the day of the show, and they had the the convention there that
Right.
I forget what his name is, puts on.
Conrad Thompson.
Conrad puts it on, and I was wanting to get a wrestling tattoo. Well, they were booked up, so I'm just walking around with my buddy Dirty, and Dirty hollers out, oh, it's MJF. And I go, who? He goes, MJF, he's awesome. I go, I've never heard of the guy. And he starts to walk by, and my buddy turns around. He goes, hey, MJF. And MJF turns around, gives us a finger, and goes, go after yourselves.
In true MJF fashion.
I go, I love this dude. Ever since, but that show was probably one of the best wrestling shows I've ever witnessed in my life. That I was always a Cody fan, but that show sold me on Cody being one of the greatest wrestlers of my time. And I will always say that. I think heel, face, it doesn't matter. That night, him and Nick Aldis put on one heck of a match. And then having Jericho show up out of the blue, I mean, that was nuts. But yeah, that's how I got into it. And then, I got into the whole AEW thing early on. I was a big fan. Now I don't really watch AEW hardly at all. I can't get into it anymore. I try. It's tough for me to watch. But
I understand that all too
I
well.
I watch a lot of the other stuff though.
So what does grab your attention these days?
Man, I will be completely honest. There's not much out there right now grabbing my attention. NXT. I enjoy NXT. Like I said, I'm a WWE guy, but it is hard. It is hard for me right now to like WWE because the product is not very good. And the way they are treating their fans right now really leaves a bad taste in my mouth.
Yes.
Being a media person who's worked with them on multiple occasions, the way they have started to treat the media is not right. And I've talked to multiple media people, and they say the same thing. It really makes it hard for me to enjoy the product. Like, I was really looking forward to the indie show this past weekend, the WrestlePalooza, because on paper that card looked solid.
Right.
But it was a mess. It was not good. The women's match was the only good part of that show. The Cena match with Brock was a mess, and I'm a fan of both those guys. I love Cena and I love Brock. I think I'm one of the rare few that thinks Brock Lesnar is one of the great big men of our time, and I would pay top dollar to see him fight anybody. I think he's that good. But to have him squash John Cena for nothing, it doesn't make sense.
No.
Makes no sense. And I said, well, it makes sense if it's going to be a rematch for Cena's final match. Then it makes perfect sense because you're going to have Cena with all the little kids ganging up, and then they're going to beat the big bad Brock Lesnar. Okay. That makes perfect sense. And I'm down with it because that's a great story to end his career. I'm cool with it. But then I hear that they're not going anywhere else with it. Why waste one of his dates on that? It just, to me, it's like give him Dom Mysterio to fight then. Give him AJ in the States. Like it's to the point now where WWE has shown they care more about, one, their foreign audience more than their U.S. audience. And two, they are in bed with ESPN, which they're going to find out, if they haven't already, that that's a huge mistake because ESPN will air the product gladly and make the money off of it, but then trash it.
Yeah.
As they did this weekend.
Which they exactly what they did.
And WWE is going to find out real quick that that's going to continue. You know, because that's what ESPN does. And they're a news outlet. I mean, they are journalists. They're reputable journalists. They're doing their job, rightfully so. They're not going to sugarcoat it. It was a bad show. Raw was awful. I didn't even
100%.
I didn't even finish half of it.
I went through the whole thing, but there was not any redeeming part of Raw this week at all, in my opinion.
It was a joke. It's just they are wasting so much of their talent. It's like if Cena's not on or if Roman's not on, I don't even care to watch it right now. And that's a shame because they have so many other wrestlers that I like.
Yeah.
You know, it's just they're not giving them anything to work with. Like, where has Jacob Fatu been? Where is Randy Orton? Like, what? I read that they wanted to have him interfere in that match at WrestlePalooza. That would have been a heck of a lot better of an idea than the way they ended it.
Yep.
Because, and I'm a huge Drew fan too. I love Drew McIntyre. But, man, him and LA Knight, they can't seem to do anything right with. And I feel bad for those two guys because those are two of the nicest guys in the business. They're two of the hardest workers, and they just can't seem to get anywhere with them.
LA Knight should have been a world champion before Jey Uso. I will die on that hill.
You know, and I will agree with you, but I will say this about Jey, and I'm not a Jey fan. I felt like he got better as his reign went on. I was not a fan of putting the title on him, but as his reign went on, I think you could have made a strong argument that he should have kept that title longer than he did. But, you know, I can see why they took it off of him. You know, but again, what did they achieve with that? Really nothing. They sold some T-shirts. And again, they're just showing all they care about is making tons of money. You know, and it's getting harder and harder for me to enjoy the product. I don't know if it's because I'm getting older and I realize how hard I have to work to make my money. That could be part of it. I mean, here I am wearing a Cena T-shirt. I don't know, man. It does bother me though. Why is CM Punk not a champion yet? You know, that's my guy. Punk's my guy. He should be a champion by now. I'm so sick of Seth Rollins. I get the faction. I get why they keep pushing it, but come on, like, give me something more interesting than that. You know, at least, I don't know.
I hate to say it, but I think we're getting Punk Rollins all the way through Mania next year.
Oh my gosh.
I hate to say that. And Seth Rollins, I'm in his backyard. His
Yeah, you
school is
are.
here. I've always thought he was a good worker. I've gotten along with him when I've met him multiple times before he went to WWE. But I don't want to see Punk and Rollins for the 900th time main eventing WrestleMania.
Right.
But I just have this sick feeling in my stomach that Punk's going to win the Rumble and choose to face Rollins at Mania.
I mean, yeah, and like I said, I'll watch any Punk match that there is, but what else are you going to be able to do with them two that hasn't been done already? You know, and that's my whole thing. Now, I did hear today that they're supposedly thinking about a Braun Breaker and Brock match for Mania, which excites me.
I would
I'm
not
all
be
for
opposed to that.
I would
be all right
down.
with that.
I would be down with that because I love Breaker. I think he is massively talented. I think he needs some work, but I think he is massively talented. And I think working with Lesnar would be a good it'd be a good test for him because Lesnar wouldn't play with him.
Right.
If he gets out of line, Lesnar will knock the hell out of him. You know, and that's what he needs, honestly. Some of them big guys need a guy like Lesnar to knock him back in line, you know, knock him down to earth a little bit. You know, so I think that would be a great feud. And keeping Paul Heyman involved would make it really interesting too.
I can't agree more. And I think Breaker is destined to be a world champion a lot sooner than later.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, I mean, what do you think about AJ's return? I mean, because a lot of people have been trashing her in-ring performance. I didn't think it was that bad.
I didn't think she was bad in the ring. Everybody made such a huge deal about her return, and I just don't think it was as big of a deal as people made it out to be. She's not that huge of a star, in my opinion, that all the fanfare needed to be what it was. And I'm not trying to diss her at all. I like AJ. She's got some talent, but I mean, she's not the second coming of Trish Stratus here. Let's face facts.
Yeah. I always thought AJ got better as she got older. You know, toward the end of her run in WWE, I thought she was really good, but it went quick. Like when she got at the top of her game, it was like she was there and then she just left.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like, well, why did she leave so quick? Like, left a lot to be desired. And it'll be interesting to see how they handle her going forward. You know, they need some fresh meat in that women's division, though. I'm so tired of Becky Lynch. And that, again, no disrespect to her. I like her, but I need some freshness. And putting the title on Stephanie though was a good move.
Yes.
So, you know, I'm willing to see where that goes. That's at least interesting. But yeah, man, it's been hard for me to get interested with a lot of things. But NXT has been the one constant that keeps me interested here lately, just because they always seem to be able to find great things to do with all their talent.
Yes.
Like they don't waste their talent, and that's what I like to see. Regardless of what it is, they have something for everybody to do, and that's what I really like to see.
It's kind of like an indie show on a much grander scale.
Absolutely. It
and
is.
There's so much depth and talent to that roster. I can't wait to see what everybody does there.
Oh man, with this whole invasion angle they're working for War Games, man, I'm so psyched about it. Having Cardona over there now, I think that's cool.
That
I really do.
Seeing Cardona, that's the first thing I texted Nick. I like Cardona all in caps, and he wasn't watching at the time, and he's the biggest NXT fan I know.
Yeah.
But he was calling a football game for his son at the time. So he's
okay.
question. I'm like, you'll see.
Yeah, man. It's cool that they're able to get some of these guys over there now. I've really enjoyed watching that program. Shawn Michaels has done a great job with those guys, and then Regal, he's just awesome.
Yes,
working with them young guys. So I can't say enough about that product. I just hope that it continues to impress, because that's about the only thing they got going right now that keeps me interested, unfortunately. And that worries me. I keep thinking, what are they going to do when Cena goes? Like, what's going to keep people tuning in?
Yeah.
Because Roman's not going to be around for a whole lot.
He's already on a limited schedule.
Yeah. And I don't know what they do. I mean, who are they going to have that's going to keep people interested? I guess Punk, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where we go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excuse me. Well, Jeremy, we're a little over the hour mark. I like to be respectful of everybody's time.
Sure.
Want to thank you so much for being a part of the show. Appreciate you coming on. And I want to end it with this. Going back to your fitness journey, if you could give advice to anyone you talk to, what is the best piece of advice that you would give or that you've ever received?
You have to be ready to commit. You can't let someone else tell you to do it. If you're not ready to make the change, it's not going to work. And if you're not doing it for yourself, it's not going to work. I recently had a friend call me up and tell me he wanted me to help him out. And I said, well, what do you want to do this for? He goes, well, I'm hoping I can find and impress a girl. I said, no. So you're doing it for all the wrong reasons. I said, I can't help you with that, man. I said, unless you want it for yourself, I can't help you. So that would be my advice. You got to want it for yourself, and you'll know when you're ready. And it takes a while. Like I said, I had to hit rock bottom. And sometimes rock bottom is way the hell down there.
Very true. Well, thank you again. It has been a pleasure talking. This has been a great conversation. And I look forward to, I know we talked about having you on the other show down the road. I look forward to talking more about wrestling and
Absolutely.
And your books down the road. So
thank you. Yeah, anytime.
Absolutely. Well, that is going to do it for this episode of Wrestling with Fitness. We will be back at the end of October for another great episode. But until then, have a great rest of your week.
This has been a For Frequency's Sake Podcast Network production. For more great content, subscribe to For Frequency's Sake on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter.